Welcome to another Scottish Watches video. We have got a very interesting watch here. I don't know why I've bothered putting all this packaging material here, because you've seen the thumbnail and you know what it's all about. But this is just to highlight the experience you get when you buy a Fears watch. It doesn't just come in a box, it comes in a presentation. So let's move some of this presentation material out of the way. And we should probably say now, we have Nicholas, number 4. He is the managing director of the Fears Watch Company. It is a brand that you've heard many times on the podcast, you have seen on our Instagram, you've probably read about on our website. But it's always good to speak to Nick, and especially today, with this momentous occasion of a launch of a new watch. So how are things going, Nick?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's an exciting time, this.
Yes, so should we explain what we have in front of us here? First of all, why have we got a box thing, a box, and a pouch?
Right, well, if you buy a Fears, it comes in a beautiful English wooden box, and that comes in an outer box, which is also made in England. Now, for this year, being our 175th anniversary of the founding of Fears, we've actually done a new commemorative outer box that all watches sold in 2021 will come with this box you can see in front of you now.
Right.
And it has our 175th anniversary emblem done in foil on the lid. So everyone gets a little bit of celebration of this momentous year for us. Now, off to the side, you've got the travel pouch. We have supplied a Fears travel pouch, which are made in Italy since 2016. Every single watch we've sold comes with one of these pouches, and they are so useful because, you know, the watch box is beautiful, but it's not something you're going to carry around in your gym bag when you want to take your watch off. And then on the left, this is where things get different. This is the exciting thing. There is a little black velvet box, and this contains the key to something special.
Let's take people through the experience. First of all, what do we have here?
So the first thing you're greeted with is the watch book.
Okay.
And the watch book is the instruction book, the sales book. It's basically, for want of a better phrase, it's the papers that join your box with your watch. So it has all the information about the watch filled in by hand, and then also information about the company, and then also the instructions about how to wind the watch, how to set the time. And throughout it, we use lots of little elements from our heritage. So you see that little gentleman on the left-hand side checking his time on his watch. So he appeared in our 1946 centenary advert. So it's just a nice little element that isn't used anywhere else by Fears, just there. Oh. And then we've got the illustration of Brunswick Square in Bristol, which is where Fears used to have their export warehouse. And it's actually the premises that lend its name, Brunswick, to this family of watches. We've then got the full history of Fears, so running from 1846 up to present day. So even though this is on our website, and also in our brochure, and we publicize quite a few elements from this, it's nice just to be reminded. So if you receive the watch as a gift, this is where you get to see it.
So we have a polishing cloth?
Yes, a little. And actually, this is particularly important because these microfiber cleaning cloths, these are made in Glasgow.
Oh, really? It's got lots of different logos and things. You want to give our viewers a quick rundown on why this is important?
Yes, so with Fears, we're lucky enough to have 175 years of heritage, and that includes 39 years when the company lay dormant between the late 70s and the mid-2010s. And what we like to do with the heritage is just remind people, sometimes very subtly and sometimes a bit more obviously. But with this, at this stage, you have purchased the watch, you own the watch, you are a Fears owner. And so your cleaning cloth has all the logos Fears used from 1846 up to the 1970s. So it's a collage. We call it the Heritage Collage.
And here we have the box. Now, we've spoken about this before. You have got, is this laser etched? Is it engraved into this type of wood here?
Yes, so the English ash, which we use in the boxes, and the boxes are made up in Warrington. So usually they're laser engraved with a map of Brunswick Square in Bristol, referencing the name of the model family. However, for this box, we go for something slightly different. So this is actually engraved with the same logo heritage collage pattern as on the cleaning cloth. So in some lights, you'll just see the natural grain of the wood, with the Fears Blue bespoke wood stain, that rich blue color coming through. And then you'll tilt the box and you'll suddenly see all the logos subtly engraved in there. So it's a blind engraving. So it's there, but it's not too obvious.
So tell us about this watch. What makes it so special and different from your other pieces?
So at first looks, the Brunswick PT appears to be a grey dial version of our normal Brunswick watch. So the Brunswick comes in 3 dial colours, a white, a blue and a salmon. However, this isn't just a grey dial, because this grey colour is actually exclusive to the material that the case is made from. So though it looks like it's stainless steel at first glance, this watch has actually been crafted out of solid platinum. The Brunswick PT, as its family name suggests, is a new family made out of solid platinum. So this is the first precious metal watch that Fears has made since the 1970s. Now, usually people would expect us to be doing something in gold, maybe a very dressy rose gold. But I was very keen that the first precious metal watch that we made, we actually went all in and we used the most difficult to work with metal, platinum. So platinum is a lot heavier, a lot denser than any other metal like gold or steel. However, where the difficulty really comes is in the finishing, is in polishing it. Because of the structure of the metal, it's incredibly difficult to polish it to a mirror shine. Now, once you do polish it, you get a very rich shine, which even over time, when you get it scratched, scuffed, as it, all metal objects will eventually, you still get the whiteness of the metal. The brightness of that metal will always shine through. So if you were to compare that to a stainless steel Brunswick, you'd see straight away the stainless steel has a silvery color to it, whereas the platinum has a whiteness to it. And you can see that on things like the hands. If we were to do hands in steel, even polished to a mirror polish, you wouldn't get that brightness that you get by using the actual platinum.
Right.
Now, when it comes to the alloy itself, it's 95% platinum. So unlike golds that come in lots of different carat weights, platinum tends to come in just one alloy, which is 95% pure.
And on the dial, it's not just platinum I'm seeing here. This is a special coating on the dial. Obviously, all your dials have got special coatings, but this one is a little bit different as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
So when we were deciding what kind of dial to fit to the Brunswick PT, we thought about going for something quite dressy, quite formal. It is a precious metal watch, so it would naturally lend itself to, something a bit dressier. I then got the idea of actually going for something in the other direction. And so we decided to coat the dial in real anthracite. And by using real anthracite as opposed to just a grey paint, it means that you've got different surface finishes and 3 different levels to the dial. And the anthracite reacts with these finishes, these different levels, the hand brushing on the dial, the sandblast and the guilloche. And this all combines, meaning that when you tilt the watch in different lights, it will go from a pale grey through to a mid-grey, through to almost a charcoal grey, and constantly changing. That's it exactly. It's a dial with numerous shades of grey.
This reminds me of when we spoke about some of your previous releases, like the salmon dial, because of the multi-stage process. When different types of light hit the watch in different ways outside, indoors, in a jewellery shop versus with the sunshine, it always reacts differently. So it's as if you've got a chameleon on the wrist.
That's it exactly. We often will get people saying about our Brunswick Blue watch that it's a 2-tone dial, but I always say it's actually a 3-tone because you can have one solid colour and then 2 distinct colours, but those colours will swap over in the light. Now, something that separates this and makes this even more special is, at first glance, it's an alternate Arabic. So we've got very clean, modern, applied indices for the even numbers, but take a close look at those dots for the odd numbers. They're not polished, platinum plated dots. We've actually got the odd numbers being shown by D-color flawless diamonds set in a platinum plated setting. What that means is that under some lights, they just look like 6 dots. And then you'll tilt the watch, and especially when you've got sunlight, you'll suddenly have these 6 small little stones sparkling away with their pure clarity. And for me, this was an important thing. It was about saying we've got a precious metal watch made in the most noble of metals, platinum. And we've got diamonds, not only on the dial, but we've also got a diamond set into the winding crown as well. But I wanted to play around with how they were put together. Rather than it being formal, with this, we're going down a slightly more contemporary route. The idea of saying, actually, this is precious metal and diamonds, but it's probably our most urban style watch that we've made to date. It's not nearly as dressy as some of our other pieces.
Well, we should note at this moment that this watch here is not the watch you will buy. This is one of the first, what would you call this, a pre-production model?
Pre-production. So yes, when we call it pre-production, a prototype is purely a concept to try something out. Pre-production is where we're building it using, in this case, all the castings, all the materials, all the tools and jigs that we'll use for the production pieces. However, a few little things on some of the finishing may not be done to the full extent.
So if you're spotting any minor cosmetic flaws, that is the reason. And rest assured, Nick would never let a watch leave the facilities without it being 110% correct. The people we speak to, the people we know that have bought your watches can attest to that. Now, you mentioned the jewelling on the crown, which I didn't actually notice until you said that.
That's fantastic to hear. That's the whole point with this, is that we've got diamonds, we've got precious metal, but at first glance, it's meant to be unnoticeable. This is precious metal and diamonds, but done in an elegantly understated way.
And speaking of that, before we move on to the strap, because that's important as well, you've got your initials down here. What's the story here?
I know, it does at first look it looks like my vanity has got the better of me. So the whole watch is hallmarked by the London Assay Office, because not only is it a solid platinum watch, but we're also selling it as a solid platinum watch. So by law, it has to carry a hallmark to show that the metal on this exact watch has been tested and the purity of that metal has been proved. So for hallmarking the watch, this is an area we look back into our archive to see what Fears had done in the past. And we realized that historically, Fears never had one single hallmark. That since 1846, all precious metal Fears watches were hallmarked with the initials of the managing director at the time. So the very first pocket watches from the Victorian period are hallmarked EF for Edwin Fear. And then we move into the Edwardian period, it's ADF for Amos Daniel Fear. And then the final Fears watches before the company closed had the initials ARF for Amos Reginald Fear. So when we were speaking to the London Assay Office about hallmarking this watch, we realized that actually it made most sense to create a new Fears hallmark because the previous marks had lapsed. And continuing tradition, that meant that we re-registered. And so today, the official Fears hallmark at the London Assay Office are my initials, NBS, for Nicholas Bowman Scargill.
Up here as well on the clasp. Now, we spoke before we received the watch. You were telling me all about it. And you said that the amount of material, precious metal material, in the top end here that you're seeing is worth an absolute fortune in itself.
So with our buckle, and this is a completely different buckle to the normal steel buckle that accompanies our straps and watches. This buckle and the pin are again made from solid platinum. And because of the amount of platinum we use, it's hallmarked to show that, again, this has been sent off. And that's also a thing just to point out with hallmarking, is every item that is hallmarked has to be sent to London to a certain address where they then will do chemical testing to be able to show the purity of the metal, and then also stamp it with a year mark as well. So you know exactly what year it was tested, who tested it, and which company have made it. Now, when it comes to the buckle, this buckle is shaped so that it follows the same silhouette and profile of the Brunswick case. So it's a very subtle nod to the case of the watch it's attached to, but also where the pin, where it rests on the buckle, that is shaped by hand to be the tip of our Pipette logo. So there's no Fears, there's no Pipette on the top surface except for the very tip of where the pin sits and rests and is nuzzled in there. So again, for our most expensive buckle, it's probably our most subtly branded. Now, it's very rare as a company to actually talk about the cost price of something. Everyone knows we talk about the retail price, but I think it's worth mentioning that buckle, bearing in mind it has been made by hand, like the case of the watch. This has all been made by hand by an award-winning goldsmith, jeweler here in Canterbury. So this is all made in the UK. This is not machined. This is made in the traditional way, the same way that the likes of Cartier did back in the 1920s and 30s. And that means that not only do we have the value of the metal, but also the value of the hours that go into making it. So this buckle alone costs Fears as a company £1,000 to make, plus VAT. So it gives an idea of just how much goes into that. When you're looking at this case, we can talk about the raw grams of how much metal is in it. But I think it's worth also saying that the case, so it's a two-part case, the bezel is attached into the case center. That case takes 100 hours to make.
Now, this isn't run through a machine, you were telling me. This is a hand process for each of these, like the good old days.
Exactly. This is proper hand craftsmanship. So there is no CNCing. And when we say hand polishing, and that's what contributes to this 100 hours, a large part of it is hand polishing. We're not using a polishing mop by hand. So it's not a handheld tool that's whizzing away. We are literally talking about pieces of wood using different platinum polishes, rubbing backwards and forwards, hour after hour after hour. Now, if you break that down, 100 hours, obviously the goldsmith has to have breaks. He has to sleep, but also he can't be polishing for, say, 6 hours in a day. You would get horrible repetitive strain. So that is why it takes 3 to 4 months to make each platinum Brunswick, because each case is literally taking months and months of polishing. Now, the difference and the reason we go to this extent is if you look at a machine polish, it's beautiful. Of course it's beautiful. It's been polished to perfection, but it will never have quite the same luster and shine and depth of shine as you get with hand polishing. So it sounds a bit excessive, but this is very much what Fears is about. This is Fears turned up to 11.
Got you.
And it's saying we are doing this in the traditional way. This is how Fears would have made those first pocket watches back in the Victorian period. This is the old-fashioned way of doing it. Now, it does mean you can't make that many of them per year, but what you end up with is something that really has a depth, a color that is mesmerizing. And this is the weird thing when you're looking at something like platinum. It's not just the weight. It's not just the value. It's when you look at the metal. People will laugh when I say this, but it almost makes you feel giddy. There's something about the color. There's something about the shine that straight away you can tell this is not stainless steel. This is not a highly polished stainless steel. This is something a bit different. And in fact, when you compare all the colors of different metals together, you can clearly see the platinum isn't silver in color. It is a white. And the polishing really helps to bring that out. Okay. And then when it came to things like serial numbers, so this watch carries a serial number. This is Brunswick 177. So it's the 177th Brunswick we've made. Well, when it came to doing the serial numbering, again, we could do the easy thing, which would be to laser engrave it. We laser engrave the serial and model reference on all of our steel watches. But for this, we decided to employ the skill of a hand engraver. So the numbers have been hand engraved onto the case. Now, okay, not only does that look better, and it gives a deeper number. So it means that in the future, whenever the case is polished, you're not polishing out those numbers. But actually stop and think about that for a moment. Someone is hand engraving, which means that if they slip, you say goodbye to that case because you can't just polish out the mistake. And in fact, the watch you've got there, which is our pre-production build, this was actually the third case we had cast. The first one wasn't the right size, even though it should have been, but it didn't come out just perfect. And the second one had a fault on one of the lugs. So this will be the thing that every watch we build, it may be that the first case cast isn't right and we'll go back to the casting. Now, obviously, that has no impact on price, but it has an impact on time. But this is where we didn't go to just a case maker. We went to a jeweler because you're relying on the 30 plus years of skill and expertise that come from an expert goldsmith, knowing the metal, looking at the metal, sensing where any imperfections will be, knowing how to work with it. Because of course, every time you're polishing, those 100 hours of polishing, you are removing metal and you don't want to remove too much metal. Not only from the cost, but you've got to ensure the watch at all times is structurally important. And the winding crown, which is also platinum, is again made in the same workshop in Canterbury. So it's also hand finished, hand filed. You don't necessarily notice the diamond because the actual veins on the onion crown sparkle because they've been hand filed with a very light hand polish. So the watch hands on the Brunswick PT are slightly different from our regular Fears style hands. Though they've got the same silhouette, they're not skeletonized. They actually have a bevel running through the center and then frosted on one side and polished on the other. So by using those two finishes, it means that they're highly legible under almost all different light conditions. But what makes them particularly special is the hands are made out of solid platinum. So we had to water cut the shape first because you can't laser cut to that extent. And then a watchmaker spent one day working on each hand to hand bevel it, polish it, and frost it. And then to ensure that the watch keeps perfect time, we had to upgrade the mainspring in the movement to carry the additional weight of these solid platinum hands. But it means that they match the dial and then match the case absolutely perfectly.
I didn't expect it to come on this style of strap. This kind of plays with my mind a little bit because you're known as Mr. Formal, Mr. Has to be by the book, and a platinum watch on a fabric style strap. What's going on here?
So it is fabric, but again, this is part of the turning Fears up to 11. I thought if we're going to hand sew a strap, what's going to be the most incredible material to attempt to make a strap from and sew? And it had to be nothing other than Kevlar. So this is a hand-sewn Kevlar strap, sewn with a platinum coloured stitching and then lined with genuine Fears Blue Alcantara. So it's very soft, very comfortable on the wrist, but there's something about the 3D weave and texture of Kevlar which I think just suits the high polished nature of the case so perfectly.
I mean, when I think of Kevlar, I think beyond carbon fibre and stuff. I think of the automotive industry, racing, aerospace, things like that. I don't think of watches. I don't think I've actually heard of a watch with a Kevlar strap. Not even the Richard Milles that I'm aware of come with something like that. So for you to use a material as exotic and futuristic as that, steeped in all the heritage of the past with Fears, and this watch being so handcrafted and hand-produced, it's the perfect marriage of the two eras.
For me, it's very important to be respectful to what Fears does and what we do best. But I think this watch is quite a good reflection on myself. You know, it is formal. It has got a lot of traditional elements, but it also enjoys playing with those juxtapositions. So it's combining diamond, platinum, anthracite, which is, for people who are unaware, anthracite is a type of very dense coal mined in Wales. And then also with Kevlar, but we're hand stitching the Kevlar. So it's bringing all of these different elements together. So it's playing with it. But the most important thing for me is it doesn't work just to bring things together deliberately because of them being different materials. They've got to work together. This has fundamentally got to be the number one. This has got to look the best. And I have to say, the result, when I first went to the workshop to check the watch and pick it up, I was blown away because all the colours combining together, that anthracite dial changing in the light, the diamonds which just sparkle, especially when you get them out in the sunlight. And yet most of the time, they're not even noticeable. Now, we do offer the watch with a non-diamond dial for people who don't want diamonds on there. But for me, I think they're part of the playfulness of this. This watch isn't just a normal precious metal watch. It's something a bit different. But I think what's also very nice is it's very true to our line, elegantly understated. If this watch is on your wrist, no one knows that you are wearing a solid platinum watch with 7 diamonds and a Kevlar strap. It's a dark grey watch in a white metal. It blends in. It's very subtle. And I think for me, there's something intrinsically Fears about that. It's not showy, it's not shouty, it's very much for the in the know. The fact that we're keeping the anthracite dial colour exclusive to platinum watches will help with people who are in the know. But for everyone else, this is a grey dial steel watch for all intents and purposes. But you certainly notice it when it's on the wrist.
You certainly do. Well, we've obviously seen Dave Sharp float lights, red dial, we've seen the salmon dial, we've seen the blue, and this just takes it to another level. And the fact that you've managed to mix and match aerospace technology with noble metals. Fantastic, absolutely love it. So we're going to finish this one up with you telling people where they can go to find out more.
To find out more about the Brunswick PT, if you visit our website, fearswatches.com, it will be clearly showed on the homepage. Also have a look at our Instagram, where we'll have some videos and also more photography of the watch, showing it off in all its beauty.
Well, Nick, all the best with this new release. I think it's going to be a winner, and since it's limited production due to the fact it takes so long to make the things, definitely believe that. So thanks very much, Nick, and we will speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.